Okay, so I'm going to try this again. We're going to do an introduction again because we're going to give you the moment again. Delane Lewis, she is a real estate broker who decided that she was sick and tired of being sick and tired. Have you ever been that way? I know I have been that way. So she decided to help build a chapter of Together We Will in Hartford County. Why Hartford County? Because we need that help. And her first foray into it was organizing a road trip to DC for the Women's March in 2016 to protest who?
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump. Donald Duck? Donald Trump, okay. And much of TWW's work has been around the education piece regarding racial incident in Bel Air High School, which is also in Hartford County. And you do economic justice, and I'm not going to say all the things because I want you to be able to say all these things. You and TWW are the NAACP 2018 Community Actives Award recipient. Let's give her a hand. I mean, come on now. It takes a lot to be able to get that. So I'm here to introduce my good friend, Delane Lewis.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to Beats and Politics Live.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here and certainly very honored to be part of your very first show.
I know. It's
congratulations.
Thank you. I mean, and this is the one-man show this time because my crew, like I said, they all working. They all had to work today, and on a budget that we're on, yeah, they need to work. So, first thing I want to say, just give us a little background about yourself, and pretty much say anything you want to say. You know, I just want this to be a loose conversation. It's not too formal.
Well, definitely, I think TWW came about after the 2016 presidential election. Is really what happened. After about a week or two of depression, I said, I can't believe this is the country I'm living in right now.
Okay.
It definitely, you know, peeled back the veil for me. And it was the beginning, let's say, of peeling back the veil for me. And I said, I got to do something. So I started, you know, just a Facebook page. Initially, it fell under the Pantsuit Nation, which is kind of a storytelling site that was supportive of Hillary. But eventually we changed our name, and you know, there's a national organization of Together We Will, and we just decided that we had to do something, and especially in Hartford County, which is very conservative, and in which we have a lot of the same issues that we're talking about nationally is happening there locally. And there was no voice for anyone who was more progressive and who felt differently on some of these issues in the county. And so I feel like we've stepped into that void and are offering a different voice.
That's good. That's good. Discuss the incident that happened in Bel Air High School. I think it was in 2017. So give some background to it and talk about some of the actions your group took, which, by the way, I am a part of. So I'm kind of making it sound like I'm separate, but I am a part of. But just give some idea about what happened.
So it was a really terrible incident at Bel Air High School where they decided that they were going to play a Scrabble game, which each one of the students got a letter, and I think the intent was for it to be like a social opportunity. It forces you to go talk to other people, interact with other people, except shockingly, high school students took it and did something else with it, and a group of them got together and spelled out the N-word, and of course, since they have to memorialize everything they do now, they took a picture. And that picture...
So Obieville decided to say nigger.
Yeah.
I can say that, right? I know, and I understand why you're not. But so, yeah, my delegate. So, but, I mean, the thing about... so was it innocent thing? It was actually...
No. So, it was...
the game was supposed to be innocent, or no?
The game was supposed to be innocent, but, so what happens is, look, these are, I'm not excusing them, their children, but what really made the incident worse is how the adults handled it.
Oh, wow.
So first of all, the school system gave a punishment that fell just shy of the number of days it would be required to notify the school board. Wow. So they're trying to sweep it under the table and not let anybody know anything that it even happened. Except, of course, once you've got a photograph.
Yes.
So the school board found out about it only hours before they started getting calls from news stations because they knew that the word had gotten out, and so they had to tell them. So that is, just shows that they were not taking it seriously.
Sure.
And the consequences were not appropriate to what happened.
Right.
And unfortunately, those were the only consequences that happened to those students.
Sure.
And we were outraged by the incident. I had a large group that gathered outside the next Board of Education meeting beforehand, protesting, and we went in and spoke. And there were a lot of people from the community also who came.
I think it was like 30, wasn't it? 30 or 34.
Yeah. And
which is unusual. Board of Ed meetings really used to get nobody, but yeah. So.
And we have, I don't know if I can say now 100%, but I think maybe we've missed one Board of Education meeting since that incident happened in 2017. We, Together We Will, has been at every single board meeting, either speaking or being in attendance to follow what's happening, and to just let the Board of Education knowing that we're paying attention to what they're doing and what they're not doing.
Were there any changes in their system? No?
Nothing meaningful.
Well, there was a prior superintendent. What's her name?
She retired.
I can't remember her name.
She retired.
What's her name?
Barbara Canavan.
Thank you, Canavan. You can say her name. Yeah. I just can't remember her name because she was just such a mean woman. She was like Cruella de Vil.
It was such willful denial. I go to all the schools, and I never hear there are any problems.
Right.
I mean, that's literally what she said.
Sure.
So,
they ran a real closed operation within that whole system, to be honest with you. I've actually had people that had interactions with them, and they would always pass them off to a secretary, and the secretary would say that they were the assistant superintendent. So they did a whole lot of that kind of game, and she approved it. She approved of it, and so now, thankfully, we have.
We do have a new superintendent, and we were very participatory in terms of providing feedback and who we wanted out of the potential candidates. And I think he's an improvement. It's that kind of still have to wait and see. He did a listening tour, so there's no doubt in my mind that he heard the concerns from the community and from us on these issues. The school system has been had an intensive budget issue. They had to basically let go over 100 teachers in this past school year.
Who actually advocated? Because there was wasn't there a specific person that was actually asking for that cut? Wasn't it?
Well, I mean, they presented a budget that required that number of teachers to be let go because they didn't have the funds. So then they go to the county and say, we need money, and the county didn't county, and really it's the county executive did not produce the money. But I see our role as, that is all important. We need sufficient funds to provide a good education, but we cannot let them off the hook on these other issues just because they're dealing with this.
Sure.
It's the job. They have to walk and chew gum at the same time.
Sure.
So they need to be managing their financial issues, but they also need to be dealing with these other problems that are happening in the school system.
Right. And they do have a severe problem with hiring black and brown people. Doctor, I can't remember his name, Sean, I'm sorry, excuse me, I don't remember everybody who's up in Harford County, I live there. But I remember talking to him, and he was telling me that they were offering money for people to come, and they wouldn't come. And what I basically said to him, you didn't make the right offer. everybody has a right offer. And I always feel like in Hartford County, because I've been there for a long time, I always feel like they always do short of what they need to do, purposely. It's very specific to fail. Yeah, and I'm not saying he himself is lying, but he might have people in the back pressuring him that, oh, we're not too worried about that. And I just think that it's an opportunity, because I think a large part of the problem in Hartford County with race is that there isn't these examples. There aren't these different examples that we really need.
Well, I mean, as a student in Hartford County, you can go through your entire 12 years and never have a teacher of color.
I did.
I mean, that's outrageous.
I did.
I mean, that's outrageous.
And it made me desire to be around. And then when I went to a college that had a lot of black professors. But believe it or not, I had also probably just about half and half. But it helped me. And I just think that in today's era, it's like 2019, but I always feel like we're in pre-Civil War South Carolina.
I do feel like that's another positive impact that TWW had, is that in that school year, they did designate as one of their priorities increasing hiring of teachers of color. So this is how bad it was.
Right.
Let's say the current student population of color is in the around 35-ish percent. They had less than 6%.
Wow.
Of their faculty was a teacher of color.
Wow.
So it did increase the next year, but these are the kind of things you're paying attention to.
The constant
right?
pressure.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously you can't, it would be very difficult to completely turn that around in one year.
Sure.
They did make progress the next year. I believe it went up to about 9%. But so that's the question. Are they maintaining it as a priority? Are they still making their efforts?
So you guys are like gatekeepers. You're keeping an eye. And so what we need to do is make sure it gets further out in the media.
Absolutely.
So, because I think that's the pressure that they need. Another question, what else has TW done? Because I remember there was a lot of protests for, what's his name, Andy Harris.
Yes, Andy Harris is our, for part of our group, Andy Harris is our congressman. And so he has consistently supported, I believe the statistic is something like, 98.7% he aligns with President Trump.
Okay.
So there's zero separation between him and so we have definitely made our presence known, especially on immigration issues, a lot of these other, the health care issue. When we first started, the Affordable Care Act was on the chopping block.
Right, it was.
And it was on the chopping block, and we held a really excellent town hall where we had a lot of the participants in the system come and talk to us and explain what the Affordable Care Act was, how it worked. And we, of course, invited Congressman Harris to come. He did not attend.
He did not.
He did not attend. But it was a great event. It was very well attended, and I think we informed a lot of people. And I think, it was groups like us doing work like that is part of the reason that they were not able to kill it. They wounded it, but they didn't kill it.
They didn't kill it, yeah. So is there any other thing that TWW plans on doing in the next 3 months of 2019, and what is the future of TWW?
Sure. Well, definitely, we did the healthcare town hall. We've had a lot of town halls or forums on specifically education. We've had 3 now on disrupting the school-to-prison pipeline, and I do anticipate having another one focused on different aspects of such a complex issue.
Right.
We really can't do it all in one session. So I do anticipate having at least one more town hall on that issue that we're in the planning process of. And so that is, it's really important. This was clearly, our organization feels very strongly, we have to understand the issues, so education is really important, but education is meaningless without action.
Absolutely.
So we are very action focused.
Absolutely.
And our constant struggle is there are so many things to rein it back in and try to have meaningful action on some other things. And I would say our other big success story is we were one of the primary sponsors of the first ever Upper Chesapeake Bay Pride Festival in Hartford, County.
Yeah, it had almost 10,000 people. And guess what? I was the MC DJ.
Yes, I know. Did an awesome job.
It was a great time.
It was really wonderful.
And I'm just going to put out here as an exclusive, I have access to all the top headliners. If we can secure a date like in the next 2 weeks, I actually have the door in there to like people like Big Frida, and I mean all the people that are going to bring people. So, you know, it's just something.
We're waiting for the final thing, but we're going to keep it the same weekend.
Like the 21st?
Yeah, so just I want to say it right. So I can't 100% say, but June 20th.
But we're looking at that date is what I'm saying.
That's what we're seeking the permit for. So
now, what made you guys, and I could just say as a part of the organizing committee, it was quick. I mean, it was like 2 months. And what made you guys all of a sudden just decide that you were going to do this? Because I never heard anything about it. Yeah.
Well, it's always the way, right? Somebody else is like, we need to do this. Yeah. And then
just happened.
And then, then somebody else does.
No, but I mean, it was awesome.
It was really awesome. And I will tell you the only reason that it really was 2.5 months.
Right.
And we had a phenomenal turnout, great response from vendors and nonprofits, and you know, the focus was really to provide a lot of support to the community, so getting services and information there, and then adding in other stuff as well.
And the drag queens.
Yeah, that was fun.
It got me in trouble.
Got great performances. It was really fun, but it only happened the way it did because people wanted it.
Yeah.
You know, people came to us and approached us and wanted to participate in it, and you know, we didn't have to do too much asking. People were knocking on the door, and that's, you know, which just tells you how needed and wanted it was in the community.
So, you know, maybe we're missing a little bit here because on one end it feels like pre-Civil War South Carolina sometimes, but the fact that there's people that were asking for this, maybe it isn't as conservative as we think, because when I look at those rolls for voting, the numbers are not all that different. The only difference is that the Republicans are more dedicated to voting. Let's just be real. And part of the reason why they are is because they're better at their campaigns, and they got money coming from different organizations. So my point is to go back to the Pride. Maybe we should be a little more bold in that area and not worry about repercussions, because I know that was a big worry with you and Yvonne. You guys thought, I told you guys there was going to be a lot of people that was going to come. You guys were the only ones that didn't believe it. Yeah. Because people like to go to Prides because they are fun.
Oh, it was such a great feeling. I mean, really, the whole day. It was just such a feeling of joy and happiness.
Yes.
People were crying tears of joy, and, you know, I think it is moments like that where people do realize how many of their friends and neighbors are part of the community, and I think that is one of the ways in which we, you know, reduce the fear.
Gotcha.
That is associated with that.
You know what's so funny? Quick story. I happened to stop at 7-Eleven, and Cena went to get something, and this guy comes out, and he was like, "Hey, you were there yesterday. Were you the DJ?" And he was like, he came over and he talked to me. He said, "My daughter just came out." He said, "I'm going to be honest with you, for the last 2 years, I've been struggling with this." And he said, "I'm a Trump supporter." He said, "So I'm going to be honest. And, I mean, you know, I must be the Trump whisperer, because all these Trump supporters really like me." But in either case, he started talking to me and confessing about how he's treated his daughter, and that he finally came to the point that he just wanted to love. And he didn't want to have that hate anymore. So he came to the Pride, he was worried, and he said, "Oh my God, y'all don't do nothing that's nothing different." I said, "What do you think, we hang on chandeliers or something?" You know, but that's the kind of stuff that will help. It might not help everybody, but it helped him. And he was like, "I'm coming next year, and I'm going to bring some of my friends." And I really believe his work, because I don't believe he was BSing me. And I think that we need to continue.
But who I really hope it helped was his daughter, to not feel so alone. because, you know, one of the groups that was there, we had a free mom hug group.
I love them, man.
And, you know, I mean, really, it's so hard not to talk about that without crying. And so many people came up looking for the hugs. I mean, people my age or older, who's like, you know, my mom would never accept me, and can I get a hug? You know, so it's, you know, I think those moments are so special. So.
Well, Delane, I tell you, it has been nice talking to you. Now, the next segment, which is going to be quick, because, you know, that fire drill made this go on way longer than it needed to, because I did really actually expect to be out by now. So it won't be too long. We just need one more chair, and then I'm going to play a little bit of music, and I'm going to announce our sponsors again, you know, make it a little official, make it seem like it's official anyway. And then Jason can come back up. All right. Can't turn up my music right now. All right. One, we want to thank Hotel RL Baltimore, Inner Harbor. Want to buy black-owned business? Buy the Hipster, a custom-made vintage leather suede high-top sneaker created specifically for DJs who need comfortable yet fly shoe wear to rock. And just because you aren't a DJ doesn't mean you can't rock these either. The Hipster gets its color combination from the Pan-African American Liberation flag as a dedication by the designer to their rich heritage. Please, you will completely love your shoes, and we will refund or replace the custom shoes for free if you're not 100% satisfied. So get the Hipster. Look at it on Facebook. Hotel RL, an experience of all things authentic, creative, curious, and locally inspired. We invite you to work, play, and pursue your passions. So, we're back. Oh, you see, it got up there real quick. Huh? Oh, I need to scoot in? Okay, that's no problem. I can do that. And you know I'm going to be editing a little bit of this. So, the last part I wanted to deal with was just a couple quick hits. And when I say quick hits, I wanted to talk about this Amber Geiger thing. And the reason why I want to talk about, I know some kids like, man, don't put me on the spot. But I'm sorry. Yeah, this is court. Part of the reason why I want to bring it up because it is the case to me is a dichotomy of America and how it treats one group of people versus another. How people receive one thing. Like you were saying earlier, Jason, you were talking about how our people, sometimes we go too far with this forgiveness thing. And so I got beat up. I got beat up on Facebook because I said that I don't have a problem that Little John, I call him Little John because I couldn't remember his name, Brand, forgave her. However, him begging to hug this person that killed his brother who was just sitting there eating his ice cream in his chair, it kind of got up under my skin, and I'm going to tell you why it got up under my skin. It always seems like we're the ones who had to apologize for being beat up. And in 2019, I just can't take it anymore. So him doing that, and then the media honed in on him and his father. And they didn't talk about Mama Brand, because Mama Brand was talking some real stuff. She was talking some real stuff. So I wanted to first say, what are your thoughts about the case? I'm going to let you guys talk, because I said my little thing. Where you guys can share this, I think this is bad. Hello?
I mean, it's a tragedy. It's an unbelievable tragedy. You couldn't make up a story like that if you tried. And I just have, I think it's terrible. I think her sentence was ridiculous. And clearly she was getting the benefit of being a police officer and a white woman. And, I don't know how to accomplish it, but this is where we see the inequities in the sentencing happening over and over again. I don't know how to remove that, but to me, that's the...
Keep fighting. That's how you do it.
Right.
You keep fighting because part of TWW is about racial justice. And even though you might not have made it to that step for everything, know that there's other steps you can go. Like you can just quickly. I'm sorry, not to get it too unfocused. They're doing an initiative up in our area about trying to go to the state with legislation so cops cannot talk to our kids on the street without a representative. My girlfriend actually saw one of the resource officers at school talking very roughly to a couple kids that were 12, and he basically threatened her that if she did not move, that he was going to take action on her. And all her point was, these kids are under 15. They're obviously under 15, and you're now towering over them with this gun. Let's just put it in perspective. This is intimidating, and so that's a way, in my opinion, where TWW can piggyback on some things.
So definitely some of the forums that we held were discussing the role of the school resource officer in the schools. It's very problematic. You know, that's clearly part of that school to prison pipeline. And yes, this is not specifically an initiative of TWW, but we're very supportive of this group that's trying to put together some legislation that would prevent police officers from interrogating minors without a parent or guardian present. And I do know that they intend to bring that legislation to Annapolis this year, so we will be following that and supporting that.
Thank you, thank you. So what's your thoughts, Jason, on the Amber Geiger trial?
I don't know where to begin. I will say that, well, first I think 10 years is ridiculous.
Absolutely.
Although, you know, without intent, I think it's hard to, you know, like, you gotta have a line between, as much as, like, I think she's a twit and everything else, I don't think she decided she was gonna kill him. You know what I mean? So I struggle with, like, I don't think she was, like, in her car thinking, let me go one floor down and shoot this Negro. You know, it's a horrible situation all around. But so, you know, so I thought 10 years was but I was, you know, I'm hardest on my own folks, and I recognize this, but I was viscerally uncomfortable with folks that were like attacking the judge and attacking the younger brother for like wanting to hug this woman, and like, until I see my older brother get blown away, like I can't judge what his, you know, like if his healing process needed to include forgiveness and a hug for her, God bless him. That is not my judgment to, you know, I don't think I'd be there, you know.
No.
You know, I don't think so, but that may be the space I found myself in, you know what I mean? So, folks were really hard on them as if, you know, like the younger guys, the younger brother's embrace of her represented, you know, softness or something. And I thought it represented the highest form of strength, you know what I mean? It's easy to say, you know, I'll kick your ass, you know. But,
that's true.
But it's harder to say, you know what? For me to be okay, and most importantly, his point was, that's who his brother was. His brother would want you to get right with God, get your life together, and so you know, like, so I am his messenger because he's gone. Get it together, lady. Here, I'm gonna give you a hug. Get it together, lady. I'm channeling my older brother who you killed. Who am I to step in and say, oh, I just thought that was so unnecessary. You know, like
some people were real harsh. That was real harsh.
I thought it was wholly inappropriate that the judge came down off the bench. I mean, just as a matter of professionalism.
Well, handed him a Bible. You know, like. I thought we were.
I mean, was she impartial? You know, and I think those were the things. There was other things that went on in that case, like
the bailiff was smoothing her hair out,
and I mean, just a whole. And I mean, the detective was talking about she didn't commit a crime, and he's the lead detective.
I know what I was going to say. I'm sorry. I thought really the most outrageous thing is that apparently they allowed her to present the stand your ground defense.
Yeah, they did.
I mean, that to me was really troubling because that's setting like a legal precedent, and I'm like, what are you talking about? That was crazy to me.
And what you don't realize, people, her lawyers are currently in process of appealing this sentence.
And then the additional wrinkle is the witness that got killed.
Joshua Brown.
So now the story is that 3 guys drove all the way from Louisiana to Texas, 6 or 7 hours to buy weed from him and then decided to kill him. It's just like with this Sean Suiter stuff. I hate to say it, I've never been a conspiracy theorist. I don't believe in Area 51 or whatever, but some stuff, when it gets to smelling too funky, and he was going to be a prime witness in the civil case that the family has against the police department, I just don't,
it was weird.
It's too close, and plus, look, if I can't channel drug dealers very effectively, but what I will say is that I think if I'm a drug dealer, the last person I'm going to want to do a drug deal with is somebody that's been that high profile on the news in the last couple of days.
I think so.
It's just there's something that stinks about that to me, and maybe it's wrong, but the older I get, the less I believe in coincidence.
Yeah, I agree with you. So, do you guys have any closing shots?
Well, for me,
not to cut you off, and also any events and stuff, and also shout out your website or whatever, so everybody know who you are. Okay, I'm sorry.
www.seiu500.org. That's the best union in the city, best union in the state, best union in the country. We just came off of our LA convention, kind of leadership summit. We had all the presidential candidates come and talk to us, so it was really great. So SEIU500.org if you want to get involved. If you're trying to get in touch with me on Twitter, it's MarkyJ, SEIU, MARKYJ, SEIU, and that's it. I just want to close by thanking both my co-host and you, Sarahia, for the opportunity to be here. This was incredible, amazing, and I hope you'll have me back.
Absolutely. Jason, I love you.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited for you. I think this is really interesting what you're doing, and I'm looking forward to future sessions. And so we're Together We Will, Harford County Upper Chesapeake, and you can find us on Facebook, and we have a website, togetherharford.com is probably the easiest way to find us.
That's great, that's great. So support, and support. Together We Will can use some donations. I'm not joking. I'm just saying, it's called $1. And so, she's a C4, so they can use some donations. And all the SEIU doesn't need donations unless you work for them. They could use some more workers. Because even though they're the fastest and the biggest, they could always use some more.
Yes, God.
So I'm going to close with my little outro statement because, I don't know, I just wanted to do that. This weekend, I attended and participated in the Justice for Marlon Barnes rally and protest at Harford County Detention Center. There were about 20 to 25 of us there. We were supporting Miss Marilyn Barnes. She just wants justice, as we all do. How justice looks in all its many instances is different to each person. Most Marylanders want to trust their politicians and their police officers to do the job they're tasked to do, with transparency, professional actions, care, and accountability if they make an error. Receiving an autopsy report almost 4 months later doesn't really secure that trust, and if you don't explain to these people, we've never actually had any contact with this type of situation, it's going to unseat their trust. Refusing to answer questions straightforwardly. Once some tragedy where a guy goes into a jail and he has the possibility of getting out in the near future, and all of a sudden he hangs himself, which is, it doesn't secure the trust. We understand that many public workers and officers are overworked. However, in cases and tragedies like Marlon Barnes' case, no one should ever have to wonder. There never should be a mystery. Much like Sandra Bland's case, Marlon Barnes was young, vibrant. Regardless of his charge, he had a life that he was going to live. And he expressed his desire in the last hours of his life. We cried for the justice for Marlon Barnes because Marlon Barnes could be my son, because I do have a son. It could be yours or anybody who has a son. This past week, we also had the People of Texas versus Amber Geiger's case, where there were numerous oddities in that courtroom. There was a judge hugging and giving out Bibles to a convicted murderer And I know I'm sounding like I got some vitriol, but you know, I would like to see that more in all cases. So that's why it was really strange for me to see. And then we have a prosecutor who's tasked to investigate this whole thing, talk about she didn't commit a crime. I mean, was he really impartial? These are just things we have to ask ourselves. In this entire grotesque charade of implicit bias and display of a lot of anti-black actions within that whole courtroom, people seem to forget one person, Botham Jean. See, the state was supposed to be the voice for Botham Jean, but I'm not sure I feel like they really were a great voice. And maybe I'm just being pessimistic, maybe I'm just being negative, but I just think that they did an awful disservice to the people of Texas. These people's actions in this courtroom were a major symbol of disrespect and a lack of empathy and compassion to this person who's so young. Everyone talked about what he would have done if he were there, but I say Botham Jean would have rather been there. I think he would have rather been alive. And I think he also would want justice, because at the crux of religion is justice. See, people like to distort the Bible, they like to play with the Bible, but at the crux of it is justice. Amber Geiger is not the victim. When Mama Jean slayed those Texas Rangers in a searing statement after the trial for their corruption, their lack of accountability, she did all these things for her son, Botham Jean. I feel like she was the only one who spoke for Botham Jean. Daddy was at it, you know, he was doing his thing. And I agree with you on a certain level, Jason. We shouldn't question it. But it just seemed like they somehow missed Botham. I just always felt like it was just everybody else but him. Because his life was taken for no good reason. This is a tragedy in both of these cases, Marlon Barnes and Botham Jean's. Many others where we probably seem to forget the victim. Too many public officers care more about covering their backs than the victims. And in those self-serving actions, they breach and undergird the public trust in officers and the system. Marlon Barnes and Botham Jean were victims, and victims deserve respect, compassion, and empathy. Not because either were a saint, but because they had the right to live just as much as anybody else. Black lives are still being auctioned off and bargained in the American public sphere as if we're in a high-tech 1800 era. And then we wake up to realize it's 2019. See, that was just a dream, or I don't know. It's just hard. Sometimes it's very hard to really take it all in. They've been, you know, I think about Biggie and Pop. It's 20 years later since they were talking about these things in their songs, you know. So, again, public officers and politicians, you want the society to be more united, less divided, but we need to have them actually be accountable and transparent. And that's going to require more people getting in, and also them doing what we actually demand. There should not exist one prison without a CCTV like TV system. I don't care, we're in the GoPro era. There's just no cause for that. We talk about the lives you are tasked to protect, because these officers, even though this person broke a law, these officers, these guards, are tasked to protect and serve these people. And I think sometimes we forget that. We think about all the other things that are involved in it, but we need to start getting back into that. In the case of Jean, Geiger needed to be more professional. She needed to not shoot someone because she claimed she was scared. She could have just left the house. I mean, let's just be honest. It wasn't like she didn't have options. You know, a regular citizen being fearful when they walk in the door and think that's their house is different than a professional. She's supposed to be a trained officer. And death is supposed to be the last choice when there's no other choice. And Geiger had many choices. So my last bit of word is this. Politicians, many of you do very little to garner the public trust because you play games with the law. Then you play the spin game with the law if you change it slightly, or if you don't want to change it at all. But you wonder why so many people don't take you serious. I mean, some of you act like you're out of the 60s, used car salespeople. I mean, where no one believes anything you say, and you have the money, I guess, to get in these seats, but this has to stop. You have to do a better job. One last thing. So in sum, let's celebrate the memories of Botham Jean, Marlon Barnes, Joshua Brown, who was a key witness, Sandra Bland, and many other victims in America. We in the activist community will continue to fight for justice in their names and lift you up in respect, because that is what a victim deserves. Respect, compassion, empathy, for paying the ultimate price for just being. Thank you guys for coming out to Beats and Politics Live edition. This was the premiere. We had Mr. Jason, MacLaurin, yes, and Ms. Delane Lewis. Next month we're gonna have a round table again, and we're gonna have some interesting people, because actually we're gonna get somebody from the Green Party. She's gonna like that. He's a presidential candidate, so that's gonna be interesting. We're gonna have also a music spotlight. We're gonna actually have a performance. And we're going to have another activist in the area. Tonight it was a one-woman crew, and I did my best. And I enjoyed it because I learned so much from both of you, because even though I don't know everything about you, y'all both my friends, but I learned so much, and the fact is I want other people to learn with you guys. You guys are like an encyclopedia of life to me. Okay? But anyway, we're out of here. My name is Sarahia, Benn. Peace and blessings. And we're out.